Welcome to this episode of Context is King on ContextTV. Having successfully defended against an injunction back in 2006 and since built the WatchMojo business on the YouTube platform, the recent debate between Apple and Epic caught my attention, and I wasn't surprised to see how it unfolded. So if you're wondering how injunctions work, there's lots of different types of injunctions. There's preliminary ones, there's temporary ones, there's permanent ones. Each jurisdiction might have small variances in how they are applied and evaluated, but ultimately, in my experience, when I defended against an injunction, I had to essentially address four tests. One, that the matter at hand was urgent. Two, that there was a serious matter, not just that it's not frivolous or meritless, but that there was like an underlying contract that, led to this dispute and only a court could kind of comment on. Three, that I was, that is there irreparable harm being caused if an injunction is not granted, and then ultimately that the balance of inconvenience is in the favor of the party moving to secure the injunction. So in my case, it was 15 years ago essentially, but ultimately, I won, meaning that News Corp, who was seeking to file this injunction against me, didn't prove that the matter was urgent. Maybe there was a serious matter, but there was nothing that was causing irreparable harm, and the balance of inconvenience was certainly not in their favor. So the judge said, look, you're not going to get this. I'm not going to grant you this temporary or preliminary injunction, let alone a permanent one. Just you could dispute it at the merits. Now, injunctions are a tactic. It's kind of sneaky, but court trials take a long time to see the light of day. So injunctions play the role if, let's say, you own a piece of land and you're next to you and somebody comes and starts digging and building a house. You could say, well, I'm going to seek an injunction to prevent them from building a house, because if they build a house, it's going to affect the value of my house, for example, so to speak. So in this case, the main reason I think why Epic was probably disappointed with the judge's conclusions was because it was ultimately self-inflicted. Epic made a decision. It ultimately maybe had a beef, perhaps valid, perhaps not, that was going to be discussed at the merit stage of the trial. And in seeking temporary relief until the trial, the judge could not be convinced that the matter was urgent. It was probably a serious matter. And in fact, it is even possible that it was going to cause Epic irreparable harm, but because ultimately Epic could flip a switch, so to speak, and it was their actions that led to this, ultimately the courts felt that there's no need to intervene and grant temporary relief because they're just like address it eventually at the right phases. So, as someone who is kind of has a bias here, meaning like I also built WatchMojo on YouTube, I've actually looked quite a bit at how WatchMojo / Epic could actually prevail and secure an injunction against, say, Apple / Google, YouTube in our case, if we felt that there was something being done that was unfair or anti-competitive. I've literally spent 5-10 years, building that strategy and tactic. And I think ultimately the problem here for Epic was, let me give you an analogy. If I decide to just delete all of our videos or just set all of our videos to private on YouTube, and then I go to court and I tell the judge, look, YouTube is harming my business, they would say, well, Ash, just set your videos back to public, and then if you have a beef, just go to court and make your claim there. There's nothing we could do to force YouTube to change until we discuss all the issues, because you could just flip a switch. Now, it's also important to note that injunctions are actually pretty hard to secure because it bypasses due process effectively. It's kind of giving a temporary, kind of conclusion to the actual merits. So they're pretty hard to get. Now, it's funny because in the news, when I kind of shared my 2 cents with people, they were like, well, in what scenario could somebody get an injunction? And I kind of, the usual one that lawyers give you is, let's say you own, a property and there's this other, land that you own and there's property there and somebody comes and starts to demolish it. Okay, you could go to the court that morning, get an injunction, come and prevent them from destroying the building that's on your land because, well, that's going to obviously affect you. And once destroyed, the matter is urgent. It causes you irreparable harm, so to speak. So it's something like that. It needs to be something pretty drastic. But moving from the world of business and technology to the world of sports business, recently Lionel Messi has come out and said that, you know what, I'm done with Barcelona. You know, they suck. I've seen Real Madrid win the Champions Leagues. We got destroyed by Bayern Munich. I'm done. I'm tired. You know, it's a bit of a shit show at the board level. I want to leave. So what Lionel Messi basically said was, because of the pandemic, whereas I had until June 10th to leave Barcelona without another club having to pay a transfer fee, Lionel Messi pointed to the pandemic stopping the league, and therefore, you know, the league continuing to play and Champions League going on after June 10th. Lionel Messi's people said, well, the date has actually now, it should be August 31st. That's when I have the right to leave Barcelona and go sign with another team without that team having to pay a 700 million euro transfer fee in my contract. So obviously that's a big dispute. And you know, La Liga came out, and not surprisingly, La Liga is the league that FC Barcelona in Spain plays in, and La Liga sided with FC Barcelona, which is not a surprise, because guess what? If one of the top, well, the top star in the world / in the league leaves, or one of the top stars in the world, but arguably the top player in Spain leaves, it's going to reduce the value of La Liga's franchises, broadcasting deals, and all that. So La Liga came out now and they basically said, look, sorry, Lionel, you can't leave without some team paying the transfer fee to FC Barcelona. Now, if you want my honest opinion, this is a case that could actually lead to an injunction being granted. Let's say you are Manchester City of the Premiership, or let's say you're Paris Saint-Germain of the French Soccer League. You might be enticed to pay Lionel Messi whatever salary he wants, and if you feel strongly enough that Lionel is right and that transfer fee no longer applies, you might make a move and sign Lionel Messi. Now, I think all these leagues probably operate a little bit as a cartel, and I don't think Man City would sign Messi, neither would Paris Saint-Germain, without some kind of agreement, because they don't want to be retaliation when then FC Barcelona goes out and find some clause to argue why Neymar, doesn't have a transfer fee in his agreement with Paris Saint-Germain and so on. But let's say hypothetically Paris Saint-Germain or Manchester City, owned by, very wealthy folks, very competitive people, and they're like, screw it, we took a look at the agreement, we think Lionel Messi is right, and we don't operate as a cartel, we're going to go out there and we're going to sign Lionel Messi, too bad, and we're not paying $1, a euro, nada, zilch in a transfer fee. I actually feel like that is a very good scenario where if Lionel Messi signs with Man City, FC Barcelona, or more likely La Liga, would file an injunction preventing Lionel Messi from playing even a minute in a Man City or Paris Saint-Germain or whatever uniform. Why? Let's go through the tests. Absolutely, if you see Lionel Messi no longer wearing the FC Barcelona jersey, no longer playing in La Liga, but suddenly wearing a Man City or Paris Saint-Germain jersey, there will not only be a dramatic increase in the value of those jerseys, but there will be a tremendous decline in value of FC Barcelona, the brand, the franchise. They lost their biggest franchise. They didn't even get the transfer fee. Now, the record transfer fees tend to be like right now, I think it was Mbappe, that was about 120-ish million euros. So a $700 million transfer fee is kind of out of this world. So clearly that would be some form of irreparable harm. The second that Messi is no longer associated with FC Barcelona, the sponsors would bail, maybe fans don't renew season tickets and so on. Two, the serious matter, absolutely. The serious matter test is just that there's a legal debate based on some form of like a contract that somebody needs to look at, and that's going to, take a lot of time and energy. It's not frivolous, it's not meritless, it's not just like, oh, I'm upset that we lost our best player. It's realistically, you lost, the anchor of your franchise. The balance of inconvenience would plausibly be in favor of FC Barcelona and La Liga. The way that works means that if Messi, who has never played for Man City, by the way, I don't think he'd go to the Premiership because I don't think he would play well or enjoy the weather, but let's set that aside. I feel like if he goes to Man City, whom he has never played with, obviously Man City gets a benefit, but the inconvenience that that causes to FC Barcelona is far greater if Messi is allowed to go play without his contract being fully evaluated by an impartial court than the inconvenience of Man City or Paris Saint-Germain not all of a sudden having Messi on their roster. He has not played for those teams, so there's no harm to them if he doesn't play until the trial determines the merits thereof. But absolutely, the inconvenience to FC Barcelona and La Liga is priceless. It's unquantifiable. And that's the key, meaning there's no amount of money, you could argue 700 million, but in theory, there's no amount of money that would frankly offset the reduction in the value of La Liga, the broadcast rights. And that's a key. A court or a lawyer could say, hey, if in the end we have to pay the 700 million, I got billions. The Paris Saint-Germain and the Man City owners are very wealthy. Those franchises are very wealthy. They could eventually, after the fact, if found that they had to pay the 700 million, roll the dice and say, fine, we'll pay it if we have to. But the reason that an injunction could be granted is, well, what about the value and the loss of prestige that La Liga would suffer if Messi, the biggest star, just walked? So the balance of inconvenience is absolutely in La Liga and FC Barcelona's side, and it does cause irreparable harm, and there is a serious matter. And then finally, the urgency test really only comes up if you are seeking, there's differences between like provisional versus interlocutory. So that's more of like a legal strategy or tactic where you say, if we want a fourth test of urgency, we better be sure that we will get it and check that box. Then that determines if you seek an interlocutory versus a provisional one. You could also just seek a different type of injunction where urgency is not a test. But here, I would argue with the preseason starting in La Liga, it is absolutely an urgent matter. So ultimately, this is uncharted territory. There's no real precedent. It's not like, La Liga, I mean, obviously these leagues have gone through world wars and they've gone through pandemics in the past, but the stakes are much higher. And, frankly, as much as I'm sure there is a contract and La Liga has reviewed it, La Liga is obviously totally partial and they're totally biased. So it does take a court to look at precedents, interpretation of the contract. Also, what was said, what was done. Messi says that he sent FC Barcelona a letter or an email, meaning not just verbal, communicating that, hey, the deadline is no longer June 10th, but August 31st. Now, the statute of limitations and whatnot, means that even if they didn't respond immediately, they've not given up, their rights. But the point is that there should be a court to address all this. But whereas Epic did not meet the thresholds to get the injunction relief that they wanted, I think La Liga and FC Barcelona absolutely have an argument to make here. Now, that said, something tells me that there will probably be just some kind of resolution. My guess is that the $700 million euro transfer fee may get knocked down, whether it's 50 million, 70 million, or 150 million euros TBD. I think the stakes are too high. I think in a pandemic, all sides will probably want to resolve this sooner than later, but it is totally not surprising that La Liga and FC Barcelona are saying not so fast. If Messi wants to go somewhere else, we absolutely feel that the deadline was and remains June 10th. And so too bad, you have to pay up. So we'll see what happens. But so this is absolutely a good example of where I think an injunction may come into play. What do you think?